Today we celebrate the 28th Sunday in Ordinary Time. The Gospel today is about the rich man who came to see Jesus and then walked away sad because he couldn't respond to the call of Jesus. He couldn't respond to the call of Jesus who invited him to let go of his great wealth and follow him. The rich man was someone who aspired to excellence. He told Jesus that he had kept all the commandments throughout his life, and I'm sure that in some sense he was telling the truth. I imagine that as a highly motivated and disciplined individual, the rich man was careful not to break any of the commandments, at least not overtly, for example by killing someone or committing adultery. The rich man aspired to excellence and seemed to have succeeded through the power of self-will. This reminds me of someone whom I used to admire as a teenager, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was a symbol. He was the symbol of what you could achieve if you believed in yourself. There was a song inspired by Michael Jordan, "I Believe I Can Fly." Michael Jordan was famous for telling people what he was going to achieve next and then actually delivering it time and time again. He had so much confidence. He had a great career which seemed to tell the story that yes, you can achieve anything through the power of self-will. So Michael Jordan was a symbol. He was the symbol of the primacy of self-will. But is exercising self-will the ultimate reason why we are here? I can see at least two problems with this kind of worshipping of self-will. Firstly, we could be willing the wrong thing. We could be willing something which is not part of God's plan for us. You see, Michael Jordan was an exception. There was no one in his family who was tall. And yet for some reason, Michael Jordan grew to be exceptionally tall. Just because someone has the same intensity of self-will that Michael Jordan had, does not mean that that person too is going to become a great basketball player, especially without the same physical advantages. Self-will does not change objective reality. We need to accept reality as it is and then work with it in accordance with God's plan for us. The second problem with self-will is that if we live by self-will, then we might also die by self-will. Even the great Michael Jordan could not beat his own aging process. And in the end, he too had to whimper out, especially when he came back from the retirement to play basketball again. There are some sufferings in life that we cannot overcome, no matter how much we will it. We know that we cannot beat death. Our self-will is not invincible. Sooner or later, self-will reaches a breaking point. Then, the same self-will which used to drive us to success might now drive us to sadness and despair. So maybe it's not an accident that a society driven by self-will also wants to die by self-will, for example, by legalizing euthanasia. In our gospel today, everyone admired the rich man who seemed to have everything. But Jesus truly loved him. Jesus loved him enough to look into his soul and see what was lacking. There was too much self-will and not enough grace. Unlike self-will, grace does not have a breaking point. And we participate in the invincible grace of God by exercising not self-will, but the will of God. We cannot go wrong by wanting to do God's will. Even when things go wrong, we participate in grace. Even in the act of suffering, even in the very process of dying, we still participate in grace. And we keep the commandments not just to stay out of trouble, but more importantly because we love living the life of grace. We want to love the way that God loves us. We want to move the way that God's grace moved, especially by going out to those in need. And this is why we as Christians believe in not the primacy of self-will, but the primacy of grace. And grace has infinite value, which is more than enough reward for the surrender of our self-will. And that is wisdom.